Cavewoman tries makeup, and disaster happens. It was an ordinary morning in the huge tribe when Zara woke up with an unusual idea. She had spent the previous night observing the colors of the sunset reflected on the river stones and thought, why not bring those colors to my face? At that moment, without knowing it, Zara was about to become a pioneer of something that humanity would take millennia to perfect: makeup. Zara was no ordinary cave woman. By the age of TW3, she had already hunted 3 mammoths, discovered that mint leaves improved breath, and invented a revolutionary technique for starting a fire using only 2 stones and a great deal of determination. But her last invention would undoubtedly be the most memorable, though not exactly for the reason she had hoped. The awakening of primitive vanity. It all began when Zara saw her reflection in the crystal clear water of the lake near the cave. It was the first time she had truly paid attention to the details of her own face. She noticed her thick, unruly eyebrows, her skin tanned by the relentless Havana sun, her lips cracked by the wind. And then came the question that would change everything: is it possible to improve this? The idea wasn't entirely absurd. After all, the tribe already used natural dyes to paint on cave walls and for special rituals. Yuji, the tribe's leader, used to paint his face with red clay before important hunts. If it worked to intimidate animals, Zara thought, why would it work to beautify? The problem was that Zara had absolutely no idea what she was doing. There were no Stone Age YouTube tutorials, and no digital influencers to follow. It was all trial and error, and there would be far more mistakes than successes. The collection of ingredients. Determined to transform her appearance, Zara set out in search of the perfect materials. Her first stop was the nearby ravine, where there was clay of various colors. She collected a handful of red clay, thinking it would be perfect for her cheeks. "It'll give that healthy rosy effect," she murmured to herself, without imagining that the result would be closer to overheated tomato. Next, she found charcoal from the previous night's bonfires. "This will make a stand out," she thought, vaguely remembering seeing Yuji use something similar around his eyes during nighttime rituals. What she didn't know was that Yuji's charcoal was finely ground and mixed with animal fat. Hers was just raw charcoal. For her lips, Zara had what she considered her most brilliant idea: crushed wild blackberries. She found them near the clearing and was enchanted by the vibrant color they left on her hands. "Perfect," she exclaimed, already imagining her lips with that intense purplish hue. It didn't occur to her that blackberries also stained permanently. The finishing touch would be something for the eyebrows. Zara decided to use a mixture of dark earth with a little water, creating a paste that she could apply with a small stick. The consistency was more like construction mud than a cosmetic product, but Zara was confident. The catastrophic application. Back in her private area of the cave, Zara sat near the entrance, where the natural light was best. She had only a small bowl of water as a mirror, not ideal for precision work, but it was all she had. She started with her cheeks. She took the red clay and rubbed it generously on both sides of her face. The texture was rough, and the color far more intense than she had imagined. In the trembling reflection of the water, Zara thought it was getting interesting. In reality, it looked like she had been slapped twice by a cave bear. "Now the eyes," she said to herself, picking up the piece of charcoal. Without any technique, she simply rubbed the charcoal around her eyes, trying to create a dramatic effect. The result was an uneven black blur that made her look more like a sleepless raccoon than a sophisticated woman. And there was another problem: the charcoal began to fall off, leaving black trails all over her face. To make matters worse, Zara scratched her nose with her scissors of her hand, leaving a dark stain right in the center of her face. But she hadn't noticed yet; she was too focused on the next step. The lips were the next challenge. Zara crushed the blackberries between her fingers and generously applied them to her mouth. The color was beautiful, that was undeniable. The problem was that blackberries area acidic began to stick her already chapped lips. Zara grimaced, but persisted, applying even more natural paint. When she finished, her lips were an alarming purple, as if she had eaten something poisonous. Finally, the eyebrows. Zara picked up the earth paste and began applying it with the stick. The mixture was more runny than she had anticipated, and it started to drip as soon as she applied it. A drop fell directly into her left eye, causing her to scream and frantically rub her face, which, of course, only made things worse, mixing the charcoal with earth paste and the red clay. The great revelation. When Zara finally looked at her reflection in the water, it took her a few seconds to process what she saw. That shouldn't be her. The reflection showed a creature with a jagged red face, eyes surrounded by wide dripping black spots, eyebrows that looked like two brown slugs crawling across her forehead, and swollen purple lips. Maybe it's just the water being bad, she tried to convince herself. She decided she needed a second opinion. Zara emerged from the cave with all the confidence of someone who had just reinvented herself. The morning sun shone brightly on her face, making the red clay glow even more intensely. She walked towards the center of the tribe, where some women were preparing breakfast. The first to see her was Myra, a respected elder known for her wisdom. Myra was crushing roots when she looked up and saw Zara. Her expression was one of pure terror. She dropped the roots, put her hands to her mouth, and let out a scream that echoed throughout the camp. Demon. Evil spirit. Myra screamed, staggering backward. Instantly, the entire tribe panicked. Warriors grabbed their spears, women clutched their children, and even the dogs began barking furiously at Zara. She was completely confused, looking around without understanding why everyone was so frightened. Calm down, everyone. It's me, Zara, she tried to explain, stepping forward. But it only duty girls. Yuji, the leader, advanced with his spear in an attack stance. The spirit has possessed Zara's body. We need to perform an exorcism ritual. Chaos unleashed. What followed was a worthy of a primitive comedy. Zara ran back and forth trying to explain that it was just an aesthetic experiment, while the entire tribe chased her with torches and tools. The children cried, the elders muttered prayers to the cave gods, and the tribe shaman began to perform a strange dance around a bonfire, invoking spiritual protection. It's not possession. It's makeup. Zara shouted, but the word makeup didn't exist in the tribe's vocabulary. All they heard was Zara making strange noises while her demonic face glistened in the sun. In desperation, Zara ran to the lake and plunged her head into the water, furiously rubbing her face. But the red clay was resistant. The charcoal, mixed with the sweat of her nervousness, had turned into a sticky paste. And the blackberries well, the blackberries had stained her lips a purple that would come off easily. When she emerged from the water, she was a little better, but still quite frightening. Half the clay had come off, leaving irregular red patches across her face. The charcoal had spread even further, creating strange shadows. And her lips were still purple, now with a more faded tone that made her look hypothermic. The disastrous explanation. Zara returned to the center of the tribe, dripping with water and with a defeated expression. The crowd had retreated slightly, but still kept a cautious distance. Yuji stepped forward, still holding his spear. Zara. Is that really you? He asked, suspiciously. Yes, Yuji. It's me. I was just trying to beautify my face, Zara explained, her voice small and embarrassed. There was a moment of absolute silence. Then, someone started laughing. It was Brock, the tribe's clown, known for finding humor in any situation. His laughter was contagious, and soon others started laughing too. Within minutes, the whole tribe was roaring with laughter, pointing at Zara's face and making hilarious comments. You look like you fought a spirit and lost, said one of the hunters. I thought it was a ritual to scare away predators, commented another. Even Myra, who had initially screamed, was now laughing so hard she had to lean on a tree trunk to avoid falling. And my daughter, you almost scared me to death. I thought the gods were angry with us. Zara didn't know whether to laugh or cry. On the one hand, the situation was objectively funny. On the other, her beauty experiment had turned into a complete disaster. She decided to laugh alone, because the alternative was hiding in the cave for the next years. The unexpected consequences. In the days following the makeup incident, as it came to be known, Zara became both a joke and a legend in the tribe. Children played Zara the Red Demon, painting their faces with mud and chasing each other. The elders use the story as a cautionary tale about excessive vanity. But something interesting also happened. Some younger women from the tribe began to approach Zara discreetly, curious about the idea behind the disaster. One of them was Lina, who had always envied Zara's long hair and dreamed of standing out somehow. So, Zara, Lina began carefully, I know it didn't work very well, but do you really think it's possible to improve the appearance using natural dyes? Zara sighed. Part of her wanted to say, don't even think about it, it's a terrible idea. But another part, the inventor, the dreamer, still believed the concept was good. It was the execution that had been terrible. I think so, Zara admitted. But we need to do things differently. Useless material, dilute it better, test it on small areas first. And so the first cosmetics laboratory of the Stone Age was born. Zara, Lina, and two other young women began discreetly experimenting with different natural materials, always testing on small areas of skin first, always using smaller quantities. They discovered that red clay worked best when mixed with animal fat, creating a smooth paste that didn't crack when it dried. Charcoal needed to be ground into a fine powder and mixed with oil. And as for blackberries, well, they decided that some fruits were better as food than as cosmetics. Zara's redemption. Weeks after the incident, during a full moon festival, Zara decided that it was time for a second try. But this time, she was prepared. She had spent days perfecting her blends, testing them on small areas of her arm, adjusting the proportions. She was confident, or at least as confident as one seemed be after traumatizing an entire tribe. On the night of the festival, Zara carefully applied her new version of the makeup. A subtle touch of diluted clay on her cheeks, a thin line of finely ground charcoal around her eyes, and a light touch of beetroot juice, much better than blackberries, on her lips. She worked slowly, checking each step in the reflection of the water. When she finished, she looked at herself and smiled. It wasn't perfect, but it was beautiful. Zara emerged from her cave and walked to the center of the festival. This time, the reactions were quite different. There were no screams of terror or people running. Instead, there was silence followed by murmurs of admiration. Zara, you look different, said Yuji, tilting his head. In a good way. Your eyes seem more bright. Myra approached, examining Zara's face with interest. It's impressive. You managed to enhance your features without looking like an evil spirit this time. Zara laughed. I learned from my mistakes. The festival night was a success. Several women approached Zara, wanting to know how she had done it, what materials she had used, and if they could try it too. For the first time since the disaster, Zara felt proud of her invention. The legacy of a disaster. Months passed, and makeup, though it didn't yet have that name, became increasingly common in the tribe. The women developed their own preferences and styles. Lina liked to wear more color on her lips. Myra, despite her age, discovered that a touch of soft charcoal around her eyes made her look younger. Even some men began to experiment, though they never openly admitted it. Zara became a sort of unofficial beauty consultant. She taught techniques, shared recipes, warned about the dangers of using unknown ingredients. And she always told the story of her first disastrous attempt, so that everyone could learn from her mistakes. One day, a neighboring tribe visited Zara's camp. Their leader, a man named Crown, was intrigued to see so many women with decorated faces. He approached Zara. What is this you do to the faces? He asked. Is it some kind of ritual? Zara smiled. Not exactly. It's more of a personal art form. We call it face painting to look pretty. We don't have a better name for it yet. Crown seemed genuinely interested. And does it work? Well, Zara replied thoughtfully, there was an absolutely catastrophic first attempt that almost resulted in an exorcism, but yes, now it works. Crown laughed. I'd like to hear that story. And then Zara recounted the whole saga, from the initial inspiration to the chaos that followed, sparing no embarrassing detail. Crown laughed so hard he had to sit down, and soon a whole group was gathered listening to the story, all laughing heartily. When Zara finished, Crown wiped tears of laughter from his eyes. You know, that is incredible. You had a terrible idea, turned it into a complete disaster, and yet you persisted until you turned it into something useful. That is genius. Zara had never thought about it that way. Maybe he was right. Maybe true success isn't about never failing, but about turning failures into learning experiences. Final reflections of a pioneer. Years later, when Zara was already considered a wise elder, she enjoyed sitting by the campfire and telling stories to the young women of the tribe. Her favorite was always the story of the day I became a demon. The most important lesson, she told the young women who listened attentively, is not never try new things. The lesson is when you try new things, use common sense and learn from your mistakes. One of the young women raised her hand. But Zara, weren't you afraid to try again after the disaster? Zara smiled. Yes, I was. Very scared. I was ashamed to leave MYK for weeks. But then I realized something. If I let fear stop me, the disaster would be the end of the story. But if I kept trying, IT would only be the beginning. And IT truly was the beginning. Zara's tribe became known throughout the region for its face paintings, and other tribes began to adopt similar practices. Some improved upon Zara's techniques, others developed their own styles. The innovation spread slowly, from cave to cave, from tribe to tribe. Zara never knew, of course, that millennia later, humanity would still be practicing and perfecting the arts she had accidentally pioneered. That there would be entire stores dedicated to makeup, with thousands of products, video tutorials, and a whole billionaire industry. That people would debate techniques, trends, and styles. That her catastrophic first attempt was, in fact, the very first step on a journey that would last throughout human existence. But perhaps IT was better this way. Perhaps the true value of his contribution lay not in the final product, but in the courage to try something new, to fail spectacularly, and to have the resilience to try again. Epilogue. The day everything changed. On the last night before a great storm, the kind of storm that only happens once every several seasons, Zara sat at the entrance to her cave, watching the dark clouds gather on the horizon. She was now almost 40, a respectable age for the time, and her joints ached with the weight of all the winter she had survived. A young figure approached. It was Noro, her granddaughter, 80-year-old girl with the same curious eyes that Zara had at that age. Noro was holding something in her hands. Grandma Zara, she said shyly, I found pretty flowers near the river. Do you think we could use them for face painting? Zara looked at the flowers. They were vibrant, beautiful red poppies. A slow smile formed on her face. She could have said no. She could have told him about all the mistakes she had made, all the disasters she had caused. But instead, she said, I don't know, Noro. Shall we find out together? The girl's eyes lit up. Together, grandmother and granddaughter began to carefully crush the petals, mix them with a little water, and test the resulting color. They didn't yet know if IT would work, if IT would be a success or another memorable disaster. But that didn't matter. What mattered was the curiosity, the courage to experiment, the willingness to risk looking ridiculous in the name of innovation. These were the real lessons Zara wanted to pass on, not the perfect technique for applying makeup, but the spirit of discovery that had motivated her from the beginning. That night, before the storm, 2 generations of cave women worked together under the dim light of the campfire, experimenting, laughing, learning. And somewhere in the distant future, countless other women would do the same, never knowing they were following in the footsteps of Zara, the woman who once terrified her entire tribe trying to become beautiful. And perhaps that is the true beauty of the story, not the end result, but the chaotic, hilarious, and profoundly human journey to get there. One disaster at a time.